than you.
Okay, cool. So we were sort of going through our shared conversation with Faisal and Cody, and we were appreciating some of the virtues that you brought to bear yourself in a specific segment of that around the 1 hour mark. And let me see, we were talking about a lot of things. Symbols, paradigmatic minds, the thing that we're participating in, and sort of sharing that with each other in a sub-propositional way. Um, and there's something important for you where hmm, there's a there's a kind of aperture through which we were able to see in that conversation. And you named this quality of being able to place it wherever felt like it needed to be placed. Um, and how this mm, it has it has the quality of being able to be nudged wherever it needed to be nudged and open up or close down as needed. And how this you're naming something that like this quality that was important about our shared context of that there was a lot of facility for that, as in skill in a way, but also a shared orientation, or I might add intention as well. Maybe not quite intention yet, but orientation to get to the most relevant thing. Yeah, to get to the most relevant thing, the thing that was most needful or important. And we were approaching the different symbols sort of in that context. Like, what is it about this symbol that feels most relevant or important to bring to bear? What is it about this symbol? And that the tools and language that we use for doing that are sort of means to that end in a certain way. Um, I want to go to two main places next.
Okay.
Um, one of them is the sort of pre-existing conversation that we've been having about masculine and feminine dynamics, the problem of three and four. You named the Christian pagan Hermeticism debate. Um, and these are sort of different ways of framing the same kind of archetypal conflict that might in some way be close to the root of the cultural crisis slash meta crisis that we're undergoing. And there's a shared orientation that we have to how do we frame up what this situation is in a way that might afford a possible viable response to it. Um,
Ooh,
that's one thing, but I maybe want to either bridge from there or to there, and I'll offer it to you by feeling into the difference that was key in your piece of writing that we were talking about between agape and eros. I mean, we already did talk about that to some degree, but I wanted to give you a chance to
yeah.
explain that in your own words as connected with astonishment, perplexity, sort of need for determination coming from a lack versus coming from abundance, as connected maybe with the function of the logos. Um,
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Let's do that real quick.
yeah, those are that's my ingredients.
Okay. So it feels important to name right off the bat, like the yin yang symbol in the sense that they're both kind of inside each other, like the dot in the middle of the yang of yin and the dot in the middle of the yin of yang, and like just like couch that in in similar to the thing we just named of like you know making distinctions but not letting those distinctions become dichotomies that are like ultimate like distinctions are there for the sense of to logosing and dividing the things into unique wholes, but while letting them also exist in the greater whole behind them, and and the kind of fractal nature of how they participate in each other. Um, so you mentioned, three and four, masculine and feminine, yin yang. Um, I just said the Christian pagan hermeticism thing. There's a mapping there too, and you mentioned like the conflict, and I was like, ooh, okay. So I think that's the problem of our dichotomy rational mind that like makes them fundamentally different categories. That there's like a opposition, and not holding that fractal participating in each other. And you mentioned the agape and eros, and oh, okay, and we started really feeling into earlier when we were talking about the finite transcendence and the lack as the means to abundance. But it's not the lack, it's it's the
Hmm.
lack. only exists as lack in relation to not lack, in relation to abundance. Like we only feel like there should be more because we only feel like there's not enough because we know there should be more, like there is more. That's that kind of thing. And then
Mm.
that's this no thingness of like you can play in that. Now you can embrace the lack fully in a way by understanding, by being in touch with, by I'll even use this word to kind of be provocative, like worshiping the unity, but not unity. Like, this is where I love that Desmond does this so well with talking about Metaxu of the in-between. It's like, because basically, I don't want to get too name droppy jargony, but like this, I think this will help bring this all together. Desmond is like a big studier of Hegel, and he's like gets Hegel very deeply, and like a lot of basically historically Hegel's understood as like the end of metaphysics. Like he basically laid out like the system that's like we're always doing this, and like we could iterate it a million times that it's this and that's the structure, which is this synthesis, no thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and we're doing that. But and and like the basically the critique of that is that it 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 doesn't let
Mm.
other be truly other. Other is always brought back into self or back into unity. Multiplicity is always, it's like there's always a higher unity. And it's so there's actually just unity. There's actually just, the one. And other is just like the engine by which that comes back into itself. And he really emphasizes like letting other be other. And it in the metaxu, the in between that is neither unity or multiplicity in that way. And oh, yeah. And so,
Mm.
oh, and so we move in that. We can only, in as much as earlier we were talking about how, the soul, the anima, knows I'm infinity, but it's important that I don't know. And so she draws me on and it pulls me up. And it's only by being that finite transcendence, by being that metaxu. Like that was really, I mentioned last weekend that I was sitting and really dialoguing with the muse in that way and letting her draw me and found myself slipping into this space where no long, because at first it was like, okay, I'm me, and then there's this other that kind of draws me on, and at first it was the Hegel thing. It's like she's other and she makes me into more, but then I integrate that bit back into myself, and I'm still myself. But there's this transcending quality because there's this perplexing lack that always is asking more and inviting me into moreness. But it slipped at a certain point into, oh, like, I'm not the self. I'm not the one that is getting drawn on by her. I'm also not her. Like I am that unfolding like that is what that is my essence is that Metaxu. And that like it's so non-propositional. It's so not systematicable. It's so not nail downable. The only way of knowing it is by being it, is by actually moving my sense of who and what I am into that relational metaxu thing that I can get that reality is like that. That is what how being is. And and so just to kind of bring it back to like, we talk about like, okay, so that's, culture is working out how these things relate. And we're stuck in propositional nail it down space and adversarial processing as opposed to opponent processing. And it's just cementing that division as opposed to that dichot or that distinction. It's cementing that division more and more. And that's, we get war and shit because that's because there's not this sense of the that tonos. And
Mm.
and and why and so we're going back to our conversation and naming that it feels important to zero in on that relevant place and participate in it. Because if there's a response and a way to orienting this that can kind of, like you say, like get all of humanity on board, it's it's only by virtue of inviting more participation in that. And it's not argumentation, it's not convincing, it's not all of those things. It's 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 beauty. This is the beauty first kind of sense of it, right? Like beautifully exemplifying and bespoking, like I'm wanting to use better words than just articulating. It's like so yeah, symboling, being the symbol of and making beautiful and revealing the, participate like in the vulnerability of it and the fellowship and the joy of it and the moving of it and the trans ecstasy of it. It's like making that way of being, that metaxological in between way, beautiful in a way that invites into, because it is only into and being that 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 it gets to be known. And kind of like you were saying, like that every like anyone can find their place in it. Because the problem with where we are, which is like, this dichotomy between like identity and like, coming together at a nation under a shared thing and having this structure that we're all in together and have seen how we all come together, versus the other thing, which is like, no, know that like we all are our own individuals and autonomous, and I'm me and my little intersectional like, I have all of my little particularities, and celebrating that. It's like, in as much as we're stuck in that where it's like, well, I want to be whole and I have identity and participate in my nation or whatever. It's like I lose that that's not the whole picture, but the other side is seeing that it's not the whole picture and reacting by deconstructing that idea of unity and identity into kind of our fragmentary little particularities, and both sides feel like I don't fit in that world. The margin, like, just kind of use our America and our cultural conversation. It's like, to put it really kind of grossly and like broadly, it's like, the kind of, at least the narrative of like the white, whatever, like patriarch man, that kind of whole system. And then it's like, well, I'm a black trans woman. I'm a furry. Whoever I am on the edge. It's like, well, if we have this totalizing system of identity, I don't fit in that. Like, I actually am not safe in that. I don't get to live in that. It's not like there's a way that I'm fundamentally excluded in that, which is no good, which is no good. Like that's how these atrocities get committed, is because it's like, oh, you're not part of this. And to affirm our identity, we need to other you indefinitely and unperson you. And And so the response is, okay, so we put diversity and marginality in the center, but then there's nothing cohering. And it's and the sense of everything getting to participate in the grand unifying vision in its proper place, it's not, you cannot code that. You cannot systematize it. It can only be lived. It can only be experienced in relationship between people, in community of love, where we're recognizing our sharedness and sameness and connectedness and also our differences. And it's a distinction, but it's not a dichotomy. And we experience that and live that. And it's only in that that the kind of ratcheting up of our of the collective finite transcendence of sameness and difference and of self and others that erotically draws us upward. It's only in that that we actually can all participate in that together.
Mic drop. Damn.
Good question. Thanks for teaming up for me.
I had like so hard act to follow. What do I I'm teasing? I so there's something like for me the etymology of humility came up um from the Latin humus, I think, and humil meaning ground and low.
I'm listening, but keep going.
Something about staying low to the ground as connected with the virtue of humility that also happens to be part of the root, etymological root of humanity, humanness,
Hmm.
where it's I mean that same prefix hu sort of connected a little bit with like earthling, like of the earth, people of the earth. And so um something about the common ground in the sense of the commons, reconnecting with the source of our shared humanity. There's a way that whether someone is wealthy or it like in the soul or materially, whether someone is um, you know, whoever someone is in identitarian terms, we all share the same common ground, which is namely the human condition and the sort of inherent emptiness that goes along with that condition. And so there's like especially like in very real concrete terms, it's not only the human condition that we share, it's also the potential demise of that human condition in the sense of death, but also in the sense of extinction, which is different than death, I want to say. I mean, this
Yeah.
is
And even like non-being to push it even beyond that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of like there's something like with fractal identity here where like there's a we're talking about the dynamics that apply with individuals qua individuals, but if we consider the collective like everything to be one, the same dynamics apply to that individual, if you like. So there's something about like the shared sense of humanity, like the I'm thinking of the void or non-being as a kind of common ground that we all walk on, that we can all like lower ourselves into and become. And it's something about our inability to let nature speak through us.
Hmm.
Like if we say like in the sense of emptiness is form, form is emptiness, it is actually part of the natural condition that if we look close enough at our cells, we see that there's like infinite space between them. It's actually like there's it's a given. There's non-being is a given quality. And if we don't allow space for that, which is super ironic, if we don't allow that space to exist, then we get this sort of like fragmentary, atomized, narcissistic
Hmm.
self-protection dynamics.
Yep.
But if we can allow there to be space that is present between us by, I would say, by being under the aegis of the virtue of humility, then we can kind of stay low to the ground, meaning close to the common core of our shared humanity, namely the human condition of that we're all going to die, that we're at risk of extinction, that non-being or spaciousness, let's say, in the sense of no thingness, is a constitutive part of who we are. And not just who we are, but who we all are.
Hmm.
Because whoever we are, we're all the same at the level of the void. No matter what we have, no matter who we are, the void is just the void. It doesn't take any prisoners. Um, there's like what I'm talking about is like like there might be specific underappreciated affordances that are opened up by the shared appreciation of voidhood, of
Hmm.
one's being in voidhood and the sharing of that. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I guess and I want to explore that further. There's something about like personhood and voidhood here, where I've
Ooh.
been trying to think through lately, what does it mean to be a person? In the sense of, so specifically what I'm talking about is like this propositional, procedural, perspectival, and participatory levels of knowing, where at a sort of all levels being subject to the meaning crisis unless we sort of invoke specific cultural, cognitive machinery and ecology of practices to ameliorate the condition of nihilism, let's say. And so then there's a question of, okay, how are these different levels vulnerable? And I'm like, oh, at the participatory level of knowing, we have this like propositional tyranny, meaning the sharing of a lot of meaningless words that don't really matter. And I'm saying this is sort of this level is sort of connected with atomized different egoic identities. Like there's a multiplicity and atomization that is for me connected with the propositional level. Then I'm saying also, at the perspectival level, the third level, there can be a shared presencing of the void, of emptiness, of nothingness, that I think is also, in a way, if we're not careful, vulnerable to nihilism.
Hmm.
And so part of what I'm trying to connect with here is like
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
we're present with that Geist, with that shared we space, uh, under the virtue only of philia, as in only with fellowship love at our disposal, I feel that there is a risk, namely the risk of nihilism. I feel that the quality of personhood may not be it may be at risk of nihilism, like it may be at risk of being voided. But I also think of bringing like agape as creating persons. I
Yep.
feel that agapic love might be a necessary condition for the creating of persons who, by bringing their personhood to bear in deep dialogue, um, are afforded opportunities for transformative experience, which can ameliorate nihilism properly. So what I'm saying is that filial love is not enough. Agape is necessary, not but maybe not sufficient condition.
I,
Um,
I would go
yeah.
even beyond saying necessary. I would like just put it like agape makes persons. Like I think that like as a ground actually, I think there's a really good sense of that because it's like this sense of agape being this abundance, self-emptying love that I extend toward the other to person
Ooh,
them and bring them into me while keeping them as other. Like I
yes, yes,
love you
yes, yes.
as other while remaining other to you. Like and
There's a quality of giving there. I hate to interrupt you, but it's something like something about our personhood where by there's a quality of offering oneself. So a self-sacrifice. So that if we can fully, like in a
yeah,
devotional
yeah,
sense,
yeah.
if we can sacrifice what is most high about ourselves, this is
Mhm.
like the more we give, the more we will receive. And I forget which Bible quotes I want to quote right now, but like all of them essentially. It's like the more we give, the more we will receive. If we give what is most personal, what is most intimate, what is most valuable about oneself, namely who one is in the core of one's being, then there's a kind of uh, this opens up an opportunity to receive more deeply than we've ever been able to receive before. It opens up opportunities for transformation that have never before been possible, which is exactly what we need, which is like it is. I mean, but the thing is that I want that to be just like fun and meaningful. Like I don't want that to feel needful in a way where it's a chore.
Yeah,
And
well
so that
also
then
like
there
fear
ends
and
up being
lack
this,
based, right?
yeah,
Right?
because
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that means that there ends up being this interweaving of personhood and voidhood, where I can,
Hmm.
by reifying the otherness of the other, by recognizing letting the mystery stay the mystery, there's a way that that relationship with the otherness can itself constitute who one is.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think of
Yep.
this in like we were talking about this earlier, of like this finite transcendence dialogical loop with the example of Kierkegaard as like this internalizing the sage of Christ and this kind of meta-narrative identity that was formed in Kierkegaard of like this dynamic back and forth between his finite self and transcendent self. this has an intrapsychic, meaning inside one's mind quality, and sort of going up toward transcendence and down towards the finite. I'm also imagining a horizontal version of the same kind of dialectical process,
Yep.
which is not finite and transcendent, but which is self and other, and
Mhm.
also has qualities that are more, like, let's say, more interpersonal than in yeah, inter-psychic rather than intra-psychic. Although at some level, I don't want to use those because it becomes one and the same in different ways.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No.
like relating with the other through the transcendent, relating with the other through literally other people, relating with the other through nature. These are kind of all versions of the same, um, yeah, the same relational dynamic that is actually can be constitutive of our being.
Yep. Yeah. 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 Because again, it is that difference between like the eros that I go outside of myself to the other to bring the other back in to kind of make me whole versus like no, I go to the other to move beyond myself, actually to really know you as others, such that I'm getting brought out into what I'm not yet, and like
Mm.
and kind of ecstatically staying out, so to sense. Like there's that emptying and ooh. Um, okay, yeah. So you were naming like the kind of the nihilism at risk that comes with just identifying with the void, and this kind of Kate and I were talking last night about irony actually, and like how we live in such an ironic culture, right? Where everything is a comment on a comment and a kind of a sarcastic inversion of a sarcastic, like it's like these levels, and it actually like is a performatively attesting to like the non-mattering of anything. It's like all we have is this like deeper and deeper self-referential relations that we can, stack up infinitely, but ultimately don't matter at all, and it means nothing, and it's just like nonsense, like absurd in the truest sense, like, and that like is where so much of our culture is right now. It's like just this ironic layering of self-referentiality because that's the only thing that we can seem to ground any sense of intelligibility in, because there's not this sense of, as Tillich would say, like being the affirmation of being that takes non-being into itself. And 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 I love how you kind of set up that like I have this thing that's going on vertically, but I also do it horizontally, where I'm moved up and out of myself, and then I'm moved across and out of myself, and those do a this kind of thing, and and like I'm in it right now. Like I'm in it. Like I don't know where I am. I don't know what what's coming, but I'm letting the getting drawn out into you, but also
Mm.
upwards. I'm letting my own aspirational, finite, transcendent sense play out in my grasping for the more that I am not yet. And I'm letting that get fueled by the otherness that you are, like, kind of beckoning that from me. Like, you invite me into this, and this invites me into you, and I'm doing that. And and then I don't know where I am, but it's okay. It's like it's not like it because what we're not doing is that ironic self-referential. It's actually like the most sincere possible thing. Like it's actually so opposite of irony. Like it's like, but it has the quality. Like it can get easily, because people will comment on certain videos that have conversations like this. It's like this is just word salad. Like they're just fucking tossing shit around to reference itself and talk about Kierkegaard and Tillich and whoever else. And it's just this like words interacting with each other for mental masturbatory purposes. It's like, no, no. It's like I'm like it's actually a living, what is it?
It's not just the words.
It's not just the words.
It's
Yeah, it's
living
like,
experience.
oh yeah.
We can at least say where there's irony, it's sincere irony. Like,
Well, okay, so last night I was reading, funny you bring up Kierkegaard so much today. Whatever reason it's, oh yeah, because Kate and I were talking about irony. And so I read like a little piece um on Kierkegaard, on Socratic irony. So it was like a piece someone wrote about Kierkegaard talking about Socratic irony, which is, it kind of has the structure in it itself, where this is like layered self-referential thing. And then he was talking about how it's like, you know, basically like Socrates, like why they killed Socrates is he was like too ironic, but he was sincerely ironic. It's like he was using this kind of, this way that like I'm wise because I don't know anything. Like that's like, you know, and the way this insight I had when we were
Ooh,
like during the After Socrates series and meeting doing Dialogos with people and I really started to grasp like, oh, Socrates is like so genuinely ironic because what he would do with people is it's like, because we can look at him kind of like a epistemic bully where it's like, he just like, oh, I walk up to someone and I see that they're just wrong and I'm just gonna pick them apart and just kind of tear them down. But he did that by extending like a genuine curiosity. He's like, no, I know I don't know, and you actually might know something I don't, and so I'm gonna inquire into you so I may find out what you know that I don't know. And, in doing that, it reveals that they ultimately don't know either. It reveals the shared void between us.
ooh,
You know, but it's and then he would kind of bring his stuff. So he's like, well, I know this, but but he would do that, and it like you can see it both ways. Like you can see it as like the whole time he knew that they didn't know shit, and he was just kind of toying with them by pretending that he was asking to, oh, you must be so wise if you know what honesty is. Like, please tell me. And you kind of see it as like kind of ironic, like sarcastic, even kind of pompous thing. But you can also see it as like a genuine, like, no, like if you do know what honesty is, like, please impart that to me. And it was so both. And then I guess Kierkegaard makes the point that like that in writing about him, Plato didn't even entirely understand Socrates' irony. Like it was, and so there's these layers of it where it's like he is Plato, you know, saw what was doing and could put it, but like there might have even been a deeper thing than what Plato understood going on in Socrates. And so here we are now, like Jake and Sam talking about this guy that I read, I don't know who it was, talking about Kierkegaard, talking about Plato, talking about Socrates. It's like that's like if we're talking about the layered irony thing, it's like there's no worse offenders than philosophers in a certain sense. But it's not just to affirm, what the kind of current kind of postmodern irony looks like is like it's deconstructive in the purely negative, yeah, negative sense, where it's like, you know it's irony in showing, and it just shows the meaningless of everything, and it is kind of it's just showing how everything's just a reference and nothing matters, and it just kind of all falls apart, and I can just play this game in a deconstructive way. But then there's the Socratic irony that it's like, no, I'm doing that to get us in touch with the void, but not in a negative, crumbling sense, but in a revealing the void and um the like the aporia, like revealing that aporetic space as the no thingness, as the lack that reveals abundance. Like is the lack that is situated on top of abundance and moreness and agape. And I'm erotically drawn in to that because it reveals the lack in me that I want to fill, and it draws me out into it. But in that, it opens up that there's ever more, and this is, Desmond talks about the overdeterminateness. Like there's a never finally locking downableness of reality, and opening up into that void in that kind of ironic deconstructing into our lack isn't just to deconstruct, but it is to like open the space where that void of fountain of more intelligibility reveals itself.
yeah. How ironic can we get? I guess we're finding out. I, I'm thinking like filling into one of the relevant contexts is that like someone watching this, as you're saying, might be like, oh, these guys are just in word salad. It doesn't mean anything. It's just deconstructive postmodernism stuff. And I was like, okay, well, why bother pointing that out? if it's not meaningful? And who is it that notices? Like whether the irony is lost or not, who is it
Yeah,
that experiences like who upon whom is the irony lost? Or upon, to whom is it ironic?
yeah,
And yeah,
because it's in the following it. It's like it's not in any of the particular things like we're saying. Like we might say all manner of potentially interesting things, but it's in what my mind has to do to follow that. What my being like participates in by getting into those ironic weeds, so to speak, that something in me opens that sees that there's more beyond that. And that is the fruit. That is the
mm,
air that's what I'm drawn to. That's kind of what I ironically, erotically drawn to because
mm.
it is my lack is drawn to this sense of um aporetic lack. My what I'm lacking is the more lack. What I'm lacking is more aporia because that actually is the thing that transcends me beyond my lack. Something
Which
which
is
is
something
still
like
ironic.
silence ends up being the state of most abundant fullness. I damn. I guess I want to like there's a feeling in the we're in the tail end of our dialogue here today, and we're making a claim here implicitly, which is that we're connected with reality, partly by virtue of being human beings in human bodies, in human lives, in this human condition that we call a world or something like that. Universe, reality, life. Choose your choose your word. Something's going on. Someone's here, even if no one. And there's a kind of, I mean, we've been feeling into the responsibility of holding the world upon one's shoulders in the Atlas style and responsiveness to situation. You know, let's say meta crisis, meaning crisis. Like there's a something's going on, something's happening, and there's a how question of how to respond to that adequately. And I don't think a complete response is available to anyone. But we're feeling toward, at least part of my context in coming here, is feeling toward what kind of dialogical innovations could play a role in that? What is it that we like when we deconstruct into the aperture of aporia, meaning when we bottom out in it just feels like word salad and nothing's going on. Well, that actually affords an opening up that can be directed. Like that opening up can be placed in places. That can be there's a spaciousness that is opened up in actually confusion and in aporia. And I'm sort of thinking the messy world is very wiggly and does not fit in to the neat little boxes of rational concepts that we have tended to place about things in our sort of Cartesian way. And I want to say that there's a way that the unstructured word salad quality makes space for the flying spaghetti monster to be present. Because actually the absurd can be divine. It does fade towards the horrifying aspect of the numinous, but it's like, yeah, it's a joke, but the atheists don't have much else going for them other than the flying spaghetti monster in terms of like maybe they need an ironic version of the deity. Why am I saying that? I guess I'm saying like whichever vector that we pick, we've chosen an ironic vector. Like our runway today is like irony, and it seems like word salad. Well, this is like a way to approach the situation in which we're all embedded. Well, no matter which way we approach the situation that we're all embedded, something is going on, and we appreciate more or less of it, greater depth or shallower depth, no matter how we approach it. And so there's something here where, like earlier, we were talking about. sort of making space for any different component, whether it be evil or the shadow or aporia or um, perplexity or whatever, finitude, finiteness, limitation, um, everything weak about ourselves that we don't want to admit. If we can make space in real dialogue for these qualities to be present, the what we call transcendent or divine or ultimate can be seen in and through those qualities, and actually may not be available without them. In the sense that irony and absurdity may be necessary ingredients for a cake that I'm attempting to bake, let's say.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Like that's if while we're doing like kind of closing summative thoughts, the one that's hanging with me, especially like this, it's kind of ironic double negative opening into perplex, that whole thing. Like, hmm,
Mm.
like
Ooh.
it's like when you talk about like what is the response to the situation, and like when I hear you ask that, I don't hear you asking like, what is a policy we can implement, what is a plan we can put into place, like what is the way of being that I can inhabit that is responsible to where we're at. And
And we're asking. We don't know.
yeah, but there does seem to be something, if you know, the myriad religious positions have anything going for them, like there's something, this idea of like wu wei, of like non-action, and it's like, letting life move through you and like kind of getting out of the way, like that thing, or like, the self-sacrificial and the Christian or whatever, different, they're not all the same, but the similar articulations. And it's ironic. It's like the thing to do is like not do, like not get caught up in that. There's a really pressing question of what is the thing to do. And like deeply, deeply ironically, is the answer to that is like not get caught up in what is the thing to do. And there's something about like, I don't like why I keep doing this is puts me, it lets me taste a version of that because it's not do doesn't mean sit on my ass all day. Like it does not mean that. It also doesn't mean a lot of stuff. and the like these kinds of dialogues, this dialogos, like is one of the
Mm.
primary ways that I've got in touch and gotten the felt sense of what that kind of not doing can be. Like, and it tunes me. I get tuned by it. And like, and circling has a way of doing that too for me. Like, especially in the relational, it's like there's a constant letting go, there's a constant non-agenda agenda. And, meditation and prayer and going on walks, like, there's all of these things that, when I'm not thinking about it, I just have this kind of inner narrative that's like, I ought to be doing all of these things more. And it's only in actually doing them that I wake up to why, because I'm getting tuned to that kind of way of being.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
kind of like the thing with taking psychedelics. Like before you take it, like I know something's gonna happen, but like it's not actually till I get in there that I actually remember, like, oh yeah, like this is crazy. Like I just have this sense of it. Like I have this little tab or this little mushrooms or whatever, and then I'm like, there's a world in here that I'm not really sure of, but I know it's like there's something to it. And then but once I'm participating in it, then I'm like alive to that. And this kind of dialogue, these kinds of practices, and this ecology, right? It's like there is a tuning me into the kind of non-doing and the kind of eros driven in light of agapic abundance way that I'm never going to talk myself into, that I'm never to be able to argue for, that I'm never to be able to plan, that I need to release into intentionally. And this seems to be a good way of doing that for me. Not only doing it for me, but also doing it together. So we're, building relationship. We're both getting to do that tuning. And then in as much as we record it and can exemplify this both by sharing the recording, but also just by showing up like this in our lives, the co-tuning, like the kind of a transmission thing that can happen. Like not only are we getting tuned, but we're gaining skillfulness in doing that tuning by doing this. And so I can bring that pattern elsewhere and 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 invite into it. And then that pattern that isn't just doing dialogos, isn't just meditating, isn't just going on walks. It's that can be applied to how I show up at my job, in my relationships, in anything I do. That way of being, that pattern can infuse and inform my whole life, ideally. And in a way that is attractive and radiates, if I could use that word. Is that radiating out. And maybe something like the universal dialogos, or like I always have loved the vision of like the worldwide drum circle, um, something like that as the kingdom of heaven.
The Bodhisattva imperative, the the return of all sages to work for the simultaneous universal enlightenment of all beings. The next Buddha is the Sangha. This kind of a
Yeah, yeah.
mm, there's something there. There's a it's the kind of so I wanted to say this is a seed of the tree of life, seed of the world tree.
Mm,
And like for me, that like the fact of the recording, it means, I mean, yeah, the dialogue in itself is there's an intimacy which is present with us, which can be really moving to notice and to open to. But there's also it's also a form of prayer,
mm,
actually.
mm,
I
mm,
mean, I forget who it was. We need a miracle every day,
mm,
where we are very finite, time-bound, manifest selves. And there's a way that in our asking, we are praying, appealing to
mm,
the what about us that is most high. And I would say the still becoming conscious God within us
mm,
to yeah, respond in some way,
mhm,
to meet us halfway.
mhm,
And I think like
mm,
there is an unconscious sort of three-dimensional DNA spiral which is present that is going back and forth not only between us, but where we are speaking the positive half or the positive pole
mm,
of the whole dialogue which is present here. And there's an entire other half which hasn't been spoken and hasn't been speaking and hasn't been spoken. Maybe it has been spoken to, but I guess it's not just. I do think of like sacrificing the logos to the void and like there is a speaking into, but there's also an asking her, asking the other. Um, and I don't know what exactly we're asking. I think we're asking the question mark of how to respond. How do we how do we get through this thing called life?
mm. Yeah, that was really
I mean,
these,
we can
yeah,
be in irony, we can be in absurdity, we can be in the nihilistic deconstruction of meaninglessness because those are experiences too. And I want to say, I mean, for me, they're inherently meaningful by virtue of being experienced. But yet the thing is that meaning is itself, I don't know, in some way, I think of meaning as constitutive of experience in a way that it kind of can't be separated out from it. So I don't really get the whole, I mean, if everything is meaningless, that's fine. Let's just keep, okay, everything's meaningless, you know? So it doesn't really bother me in some way. We can, like, let's inhabit that and go through that. But then we're still here. We're still here on the other side of that, and we're still showing up for what it's worth. And I
mm,
think it's worth a lot.
yeah, yeah. This feels like as beautiful a place as any to wrap it up. I'm gonna be sitting with Dialogos as prayer a lot. I think that like really landed like that like just got right by my mind and dropped right into my heart. And yeah, the sense of yeah, so I've talked about like describing it as like dialogical mysticism a lot, and it that definitely feels true. There's something that really hurts me about Dialogos as prayer. I've heard Peugeot before described. It's like basically in prayer, you're opening up the space for like God to put a miracle in. It's like I'm making myself open to getting brought up into something higher,
And
and
this
that
that is the kingdom of God. That is the kingdom of God. That is the um where two meet in my name, I will be present there among them. Like that is the community. Like the That's why I called it Mysteria Dialogia. It's like there is a new world which is trying to be born, and it's trying to be born through us, very simple little human beings. Um, I, I thought of like when we finally get around to starting a podcast, or at least when I finally do, there's like a hey friends, welcome to the Mysteria, and I'm like this is a central quality. Like this the mystery is something to pursue. It's something that we're in touch with all the time. I mean, are we not? I mean, are you not entertained? Like, there's so much mystery all around us, like right here, if we just stop to notice it, and we don't. It like the participating in it by speaking to it and from it and through it is the only way of knowing which can hold the complexity of the mystery that is the essence of our lives. I mean, if nothing else but Dialogos as prayer, it's the dialogos as that aperture that's created by the cycling of finite and transcendence or anything else. The whole point of that is that agape can flow through on the third dimension and be present among us. So, yeah, to me, it's proof of concept
hmm,
and not just concept, proof of the viability of life.